This is Into the Deep with Catherine Just, a podcast devoted to the evolution of consciousness, connection, and inspired creative expression.
Hi, everybody. So earlier today, I was teaching the Make the Work coaching program, and somebody after the end of our session said, I was watercolor painting, and I just thought to myself, what is the point of this? And I thought, this must be discussed. So that's what we're going to talk about today on the podcast. What is the point of making our art? Have you ever asked yourself that question? I know I have. It came up a couple times in my art making career, and I've had different answers come up to the surface, and I wanted to share what I shared in the group today with you all here. And basically, for me, what I find to be true is that when I start to make my work, it is a direct connection to what I call source or my version of God, the connection to the universe. It's like having a conversation with that thing that can't really be named. And it gets me in the present moment more than most things. It's a type of meditation for me, but it's an active type of meditation with my eyes wide open. And that is one aspect of it. And when I look through the lens of my camera, I personally have the experience of seeing my version of God looking back at me. And I can't express to you how emotional it feels when I'm doing any sort of photographic work. And I lift the lens up, the camera up to my eye, and I look through the lens, and I have often been brought to tears because of what I see. If it's a person, I'm looking in their eyes and I see a version of God looking back at me. If it's a landscape, I am moved by what the earth has created, what our version of God has created, what the universe has created. And if it's my own personal work or self-portrait work, I feel like I'm just getting a deeper understanding of what lives underneath the surface of everyday life. So in every single way, I'm being brought to what lives in between the words or underneath the surface or the thing that's happening around us that we can't quite see, but we can feel. That kind of thing turns me on. I want to investigate that forever. What the hell is going on all around us? That energy that we feel when we walk into a room and, you see different people that you want to talk to based on how energetically they feel, or when you walk into a room and you feel creeped out. Like, what is that? I think it's fascinating that we only see a fraction of the spectrum of light. So it's true. There's a lot happening around us that we can't see with our own eyes. I'm fascinated with what else there is there. Can my camera capture it? If I leave the camera open, the shutter open for longer than a 60th of a second, what happens? What's in there? No, what's in there? Anyway, I wanted to bring this up because I think a lot of people struggle with what's the point? I had a Toltec teacher say to me, put your camera down, you're hiding behind the camera and not connecting. And I thought, but it is my work. To look through the lens and see a version of God looking back to me is an instant connection with the truth, with my version of the truth. So, no, I'm not putting my camera down. What is it for you? How do you answer that question for yourself? I'm curious. Can you see it in a different way than what's the point? I think a lot of us tend to think that if it isn't bringing money in, there's no reason to waste time in pursuing some creative process or expression. What's the point? Well, it makes you feel something. It gets you connected to your emotional body. It gets you potentially back in your body. And there's just so much to be said about the practice and process of making art. I feel like there's sacred medicine available to you when you allow yourself the opportunity to dive in, to go into the deep end of the pool, get out of the shallow end. There's nothing there for you. It's empty. And it feels like you might get lost in the deep end, but really, I find that that's where the things I most need are found. There are treasures in there. I love turning triggers into treasures, as many of you know. What is happening in my mind on a continual basis that I can use as the topic of my art practice and dive into exploring what the treasure is there? I'm also really interested in the process or practice of being curious. Curiosity is what leads the way. I'm responding to what happens when I make a mark or take a photo or make a little stitch with a needle and thread or paint a paint stroke on the canvas or fold up a photograph and stick it in a boiling hot pot full of espresso because that's what I do. What happens? I'm curious. We can try to control the outcome by designing an idea beforehand, but I don't think that's actually where the answers are. Not in the designing of an art piece, but when you dive in and you start, then it starts to speak to you. Then you're in conversation with, then you are in a sacred experience with yourself and that version of God, source, universe, energy that maybe is easy to forget is always there in your day to day life. So, in essence, it is like a spiritual practice. At least it is for me. And I don't have to do anything to get to a direct connection with that thing that's unnameable. I just start making. I become a creator. I move into the practice of creation. And then things get birthed there. That's an interesting word to say. Birthed. Anyway, then what happens when you add self portraiture into the mix? Well, I'm not going to talk about that today. I'm going to talk about that in my next episode. So stay tuned for that. But I am curious if you can find what's true for you. What is true for you around finding the point in making art? For me, it is a form of sacred medicine, and it has been for more than 35 years. I started making art when I was addicted to crystal meth. When I was 16 years old, I had to take an art class in high school. And that's when I started to learn how to see. What a glorious thing that is, seeing. And then after I got sober, when I was 18, I went to art school and learned so many ways to see and to express and to dive down into the deep and pull up what is maybe underneath all the muck down there and turn it into something that I like to call visual poetry. You know, sometimes it's hard to articulate what we're feeling or things that we've been through that are maybe hard to say out loud with words. And I love that we can use metaphor and symbology to create what I consider a visual poem. And what's interesting too is that when we make the work and we can get out of the way and really make work, be in the practice of creation and being present and all the things I already discussed, and we put it out into the world and we get out of our own way and remember that it's none of our business what anybody else thinks. It's none of our business who likes it and who doesn't. It's none of our business. It's our business to put it out into the world for that one person who needs to know that there's somebody else out there that they can connect to and relate to on a deeper level. That's what happened for me when I first got sober. I saw somebody's artwork and it sung to my insides and made me cry because I didn't know what that art was about in their eyes. I just knew what that art felt like to me. And I felt like they understood me and I understood them on a deeper level. And it helped me to understand that we are connected to everything and that I don't have to suffer from terminal uniqueness. It's about reclaiming our inner knowing And I'll talk more about that next time. If you want to dive into this idea further, or if you're just ready to make the work and you know why, or you don't know why, you just want to, I encourage you to jump on over to my website at catherinejust.com and get on the email list. I am opening spots right now at the time of this recording for a free masterclass in the sacred medicine of self-portraiture. And that's happening soon. And I'm also getting ready to launch a collective, the Make the Work Collective, where we meet on Zoom and we make the work and we talk about how to get out of our own way and we support each other in the making. It's so great to meet with other artists and just make art. And we don't have to show it to each other. We don't have to prove anything. There'll be more information on the website and in my email shortly. Okay, that's all I've got for now. I hope you have a great rest of your day. Take care, and ciao for now.
Thank you so much for listening to another episode of Into the Deep with Catherine Just. You can check out all other episodes and help support the podcast over on catherinejust.com/podcast. Be sure to subscribe, rate, comment, and review over on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or anywhere else you listen to this podcast. You can share this episode on social media. I look forward to having my voice in your ears next time. Take care.